Our guest this week was just named Time Magazine's Business Person of the Year with a beautiful oil portrait. Bob Iger.
Nice thing to wake up to,
Yeah,
by the way.
right? Is that painting, does that physically exist, you with the child?
It's the first time I saw it today when I was online. I did not know it was being done. There had been a request for a photograph, which we did not do, and the painting showed up today, basically in my inbox.
Because I'll tell you, if that exists on canvas somewhere, that's something to put above a fireplace, I think.
I think you'd have to ask my wife. I thought, by the way, about my Christmas card this year, and I was thinking maybe I should include that painting and say, you know, we had a sixth grandchild this year, the asset or the child.
The child is just the cherry on top of a really, really huge year for Star Wars. The last time you and I sat down was Anaheim 4 years ago, the morning that the teaser trailer for The Force Awakens was about to be released. And now here we are with The Rise of Skywalker about to be released in theaters. How has this journey felt for you over the last 4 years?
Well, it's been an incredibly fulfilling and a very exciting journey, but actually I think in many respects we're just getting started. We've accomplished a lot, obviously, with the saga films, the Skywalker saga, and the opening of Galaxy's Edge here in California and in Florida, and of course a few other films along the way and TV series. But it just feels like we're just starting to mine the full potential of what Star Wars is and what Star Wars can be. And I think it took some time as Lucasfilm became part of Disney and we started thinking long term, not just about fulfilling the interests of the fans short term, but long term what could happen. And I get a sense that the future is far more vast than we expected it to be. And so there's just a lot that lies ahead.
You also released a book this year, The Ride of a Lifetime, and it was an instant bestseller, still on the bestseller list.
Thank you.
And you do talk in that book about what a fan you are of Star Wars and what a fan you were when this opportunity came up. And it's been wonderful to see Star Wars sort of woven into the fabric of everything Disney is able to do. One of the things you talk about is the core tenets and the principles, like these three kind of guiding things that you want to be the pillars of Disney. But I want to talk about Disney Plus. And obviously Disney Plus is a big technological platform, but it's also a huge creative platform. So what did you want Disney Plus to be creatively? How does it differ from other platforms that are available?
Well, going back to what you said about sort of three tenets that I thought Disney should adhere to. One clearly was great creativity, and we can come back to that. It's certainly relevant in this discussion to anything Star Wars. Another one was growing globally in a much more impactful, much more significant way. And the middle one was technology. And when I articulated that back in 2004, the vision that I had was that Disney, as it had in Walt's day, should embrace technology for a few different reasons. One, use it to make the product and the stories that you tell more compelling to the audience. I can't think of a better example of someone who did that than George Lucas, for instance, using technology to tell a better story. And that's obviously what we saw in 1977 when we got to see the first Star Wars film. The second was, let's use technology to distribute our content to people in not only more effective ways, but more compelling ways for them, more satisfying ways for them. And I think Disney Plus speaks volumes about both of those. The Mandalorian, obviously a great example of that.
I want to touch on The Mandalorian, obviously, because it's been such a huge success. What made The Mandalorian the Star Wars project to kick off Disney Plus?
Well, first of all, we have great faith in John, both as a storyteller, but also a storyteller like George that knows how to use technology for the good of his stories and the good of the audience that will ultimately hear or see the stories. We had seen that in Jungle Book, which he remade for us, which I thought was brilliant in so many different ways. We certainly saw that in Lion King, which was breakthrough in many ways. And so when John pitched the idea of a Star Wars series, we immediately understood not only did we have a great storyteller, but we had a storyteller that was going to continue to write new rules of sorts or mine new territory in terms of how he was going to use technology to tell great stories that felt fresh, that felt important, that felt big, that took people to new places and created new experiences. And so it was a very easy decision for us to make. Dave Filoni and the team at Lucasfilm who were involved in it, the concept of The Mandalorian, the use of the technology, Disney Plus, it all kind of fit together.
And obviously the big breakout star of The Mandalorian. Let's talk about the child. When you first saw the child, did you have an idea that it would be as big a deal with literally everyone?
Yes.
Did you see that coming?
I think it's exceeded our expectations, all of our expectations. But I knew the moment I saw an early cut of the first episode that we had something really special. And I just felt it. And, I've been in the business for 45 years, worked my way up through television mostly. Remember times throughout my career in television when I saw either a character or an actor playing a character when you just knew. And I realized that in this particular case, the child or the asset, because we don't refer to the child or the asset the way the world is referring to the child and the asset as Baby Yoda. That's, a no-no.
It's not Yoda.
I got chastised. In my early emails to Jon Favreau, I referenced in my emails Baby Yoda. It just seemed easy.
Yeah.
And I got my wrist slapped by John like a few times. It's not Baby Yoda. Okay. It doesn't have to say anything, just emotes, just looks, moves the ears, the eyes, and so darn intriguing. I think people really want to know, what's its name? What's its real name? Do you know its real name, by the way?
I do not. No. I'm not allowed to know anything important, Bob, because
you just,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know its real name, and it's one of the reasons why I have extra security now, because I don't want to be given some kind of truth serum by someone.
Right. Star Wars is a lot of keeping these things precious and keeping these things secret to kind of let the audience open the present for themselves.
And we didn't tell anybody about that character's presence in the series or even the first episode. And I know a lot's been said about the Christmas season and everybody wants to buy the child toys and et cetera and so on. And they're not really out there, and that's because if we had given the design out, it would have gone out to hundreds and hundreds of people, probably all over the world, and we didn't want to do that. So people will have to wait, which I think actually that's a good thing in this case.
No, I love that. Sometimes there is a cynicism about all media and all pop culture right now, that it is product-led first, and I love that creativity, like you're saying. The importance of the story is one of these central tenets here, and it's like, let's not violate that for people.
I understand that people think because there's money to be made doing that, people think it reeks of commercialism, but we've never set out to tell a story simply because it could become a toy or a game or a consumer product of some sort. In many respects, if you think about what happened with Star Wars when it first came out in the 70s and Lucasfilm did with lightsabers and Darth Vader helmets, etc. and so on, what you're really doing there by creating those goods is you're bringing the storytelling to life in a different way, and you're enabling people who enjoyed the story in the first place, particularly kids, to engage with the story in a different way.
Growing up, I have fond memories just as much of my first Star Wars figure or my first stuffed Mickey Mouse, which was from Italy at Epcot, by the way, when the different country Mickeys were out there.
Topolino. Yeah. In Italy, Mickey Mouse was known as Topolino.
Yeah.
Or Baby Mickey. No, I'm kidding.
Baby Mickey, but you're not allowed to call him Baby
No.
Mickey. No. Star Wars and television, where do you see that in the future? Is that going to be a big component?
Yes. I don't look at it as just television. I look at it as an extension of Star Wars storytelling. And what Disney Plus has given us the ability to do is to do just that, is to bring Star Wars to people in new ways and to bring new Star Wars to people. It's not the same place or the same characters. And just look at Mandalorian. While obviously there's a lot shared, there's a lot that's really fresh. And I love that. I love the ability to really be agnostic in terms of what platform it's being made for. And so it could be, down the road that a TV show becomes a movie and a movie becomes a TV series. I'm not making any announcements here or not, but I think it's important for us
It'd be great
to be
for us.
agnostic.
It'd be great for us if you made like one announcement. Do you know what I mean? Like if you just made one announcement, that'd be amazing.
Well, I'll
for
make
us.
one. The baby's name is not George.
Okay. Fair.
It's not that.
Fair. But no, this is kind of wonderful because there is a want from people to kind of know what happens in these different moments of these characters' lives and different pacing. And one of the things that I've been loving about The Mandalorian so far is it feels like in an episodic form, chapter by chapter, you have so much more time to go deeper into these worlds that you don't necessarily get when you've got to do 90 minutes, 120 minutes in a theater.
Yes, movies in many ways, even if they're part of sagas like the Skywalker saga, for the most part have to be finished. And while that's true for a lot of episodic television, there needs to be something that happens at the end of an episode that is satisfying and provides either some closure or enough satisfaction to the audience. But they're all designed for what is the next episode, too. So there's a kind of a never-ending feature to that kind of storytelling, and that creates a lot of freedom for the creator. And I think it's one of the reasons why you see a lot of great movie makers turning to television. It was a medium before that they didn't feel would satisfy them because it didn't have the scale or the scope that they were used to. to, which is no longer the case, infusing these so-called television episodes with so much production value. But now it's given the ability to tell stories in a much more luxurious way in many respects, and maybe even a more organic way. Sometimes you don't know really how a story should end or will end. You kind of let it unfold, and it comes to you as you're creating or as the audience is reacting to it.
Yeah, and a medium that Disney gets to tell stories in that I don't think really anybody else gets to, at least not on the scale that you can, is in the parks.
Yes.
And obviously, going back to your three tenets here, you want to talk about creative and global and technology. Galaxy's Edge was such a huge accomplishment this year.
I walked it with George Lucas for the first time that he did.
How was that?
It was great. What George loved about it, aside from the fact that he seemed fully immersed in the land, the fact that it felt so real, is the ambition. And our Imagineers, which were charged by me with being ambitious in this case, it's Star Wars, like go for it. Our Imagineers really outdid themselves. But I think in being so ambitious, they were doing something that was so consistent with Star Wars storytelling going all the way back to George's first film. George was always ambitious. He was always thinking big, and it was big pictures and big stories and big places and big characters, and that's what Galaxy's Edge is to me and to many others. It feels so Star Warsian because it's so ambitious. Talk about ambition. We have Rise of the Resistance that just opened in Florida and will open in California in January. We've never created an attraction that has as much technology in it as that one. As you know, our Imagineers are storytellers too. Here, they're telling a Star Wars story in a physical world, which imagine, in order to do it right, in order for it to feel real, the technology that goes into that is just extraordinary.
We got to ride it, and I felt like I've ridden every particular ride system I've ever experienced in one.
Yeah. I love it because it gives those that are experiencing it a chance to really immerse themselves. There's one time when you stand in that gigantic hangar bay, and it's gigantic. You feel the scale, and you see all those stormtroopers, and you feel like you can just stand there and look around and interact in some ways. It's phenomenal.
Those are those kind of moments that I think really only y'all get to pull off.
Well, it takes a lot of talent. We have that at Imagineering, and a lot of guts, and of course the storytelling. I think it speaks volumes about Lucasfilm being and Star Wars being part of Disney. We had done work with Lucasfilm before, notably for Star Tours, it was called, and I thought that was quite innovative in terms of use of technology and immersion, etc. But the scale of this is so much bigger. And I don't think it would have happened unless Star Wars was part of Disney.
To kind of go into one more area that's this new frontier, ILM X Lab released their award-winning VR experience, Vader
Great
Immortal.
experience.
Where do you see VR fitting into media in the future?
Well, I don't think we know yet. It's clearly another medium that can be used in compelling ways from a storyteller's perspective. And I think that's probably where we'll go. I think the biggest question about VR is how scalable is it? In other words, how do you bring it to more and more people in an effective and an efficient way? In the meantime, I think it's important to continue to invest in telling stories using that medium so that as we get better at doing that, we can figure out ultimately how do you bring it to market in an economically feasible way.
And then finally, The Rise of Skywalker will be releasing in theaters. This is an over 40-year journey in storytelling for Star Wars. Where do you see it going in the next 40 years? What's next?
First, we have to tell people what the baby's name is, and then maybe we'll start talking about what's next.
We know it's not George, and we know it's not Topolino.
Exactly. And we know it's not Yoda.
We know it's not Yoda.
The beauty of all of this is that we'll continue to tell stories between now and whatever the next film is. And while we're doing that, we will work to find what makes the most sense to be released as a big screen experience. And there are a number of choices, there are a number of discussions, there are a number of very talented people. And that to me is very exciting. In the meantime, fans of Star Wars are being well served, I believe, with The Mandalorian and with what's to come with the prequel to Rogue One and with Obi-Wan and with Clone Wars.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. We're very excited to see what comes next. Thank you so much for sitting down with me, Bob.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate
Nice to see you.
You too.